And we're recording. So tonight's guest is Jim Shanahan of Advanced Performance Shooting. Jim, thanks so much for coming on today, man.
You can't imagine how happy I am. I really appreciate the opportunity.
I'm absolutely honored. I'm utterly honored. So Jim here is, when I first met him, it was in a class taught by Akil Kadir and Tiffany Johnson. They were teaching a USCCA instructor class, and just about everybody else in the class was really kind of desperate to get their instructor career started with a nice baseline basic instructor certification. And it seemed like we were the only two in the room that really could not give a damn less about the USCCA.
Right. That class was a means to an end uh, for me, and it wasn't the means to get another instructor certification. Uh, it was a way to meet Tiff and Ack and uh, ask very specific marketing like questions. It just took me 7.5 hours to get there from where I'm at.
Man. And I think that's incredibly humble. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, just going into a little bit of your background, Army drill sergeant, Army Green Beret. How long did you serve? Like,
No, I was never a special forces guy. I got a great opportunity to work with a bunch of them, but I was never a special forces guy.
my apologies. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to misrepresent.
No,
So,
not at all. And I hope there's nothing. I would hope to think I'm very. I try to be very, very careful. Uh, the stolen valor kind of concept, especially in the instructor world, is I find personally very, very offensive. Not so much that that person doesn't care about the values and the honors that service members have based on their service, but they're when they use that to misrepresent to a student, to me that does the student a huge disservice, huge disservice. I had lots of opportunity to work with 10th group guys, first group guys, fifth group guys, but I purposefully made the decision to not go that route.
so, can you tell me a little bit about like what you did before you started instructing, and like how you got onto this track?
Well, I joined the Army in 19. I don't know if I should tell them what year I joined the Army. 1984, right out of high school, I joined the Army. There was never much of a doubt that I was going to make the Army a career. It seemed like something I really wanted to do, and there was a pretty decent path uh, for me. I was a drill sergeant from 1994 to 1997, and that really, to me, was probably a life-changing event at the time when I was a drill sergeant. If you were selected to be a drill sergeant from amongst your uh, work group, does the Marine Corps call it MOS, Military Occupational Specialty?
Yeah,
Um,
we call it that. Yeah.
if you were in the Army, if you were selected in your MOS to go to drill sergeant school, it was an indication that they thought you were in the top 5% of your job. And I was very honored with that. Basic training all over again, the same amount of time, but now you got to learn how to teach those things. I wasn't even through my first cycle with basic training privates before I realized that I wanted to do that for as long as they would let me do that. And I volunteered for the third year. That's probably the most rewarding job I ever had, where you could see a kid that he may have been raised with some discipline, that his parents may have made him wear different clothes to school, or the correct clothes to school, made him be on time, but it was nothing compared to what he was going to experience in the military. They had no concept of what it was. And 9 weeks later, you see a soldier walk across the stage, and you've been a part of whatever they're going to do for their career. And that was just a huge honor for me. I watched uh, I watched fellow drill sergeants, and drill sergeants, I'm sure Marine Corps drill instructors get a bad rap. They yell, they scream, they holler. Not beyond me to use a little bit of profanity, but we'd sit in a dining facility, and some soldier in line would do something, and I'd just blow up. Bah! Then I turn right around, talk to my buddies, and they're like, "Dude, how do you do that?" I'm like, "What? How do you get so mad?" And then you turn right around and you turn it off. I said, "I'm not mad. That kid didn't know. He didn't know. I yelled, so I don't have to say the same thing 65 times. It's the only reason I yelled. I'm not mad. Why do you get mad at somebody that doesn't know what they're doing? And I figured out really quickly, especially on the rifle range, because I was in the Army, the combat MOS jobs, they do basic training and their advanced training together. But all of them that are softer skills, uh, medics, cooks, truck drivers, lots of the jobs, the basic training and their advanced training are in two separate locations, two different sets of cadre. Basic training is in the Army anyway. There's has to be X number of infantry drill sergeants, but there's all kinds of mix. I met boat drivers as drill sergeants. I didn't even know the Army had boats, much less boat drivers. And I'm like, no. But I'd see people, drill sergeants, just lose their mind when soldiers would ask them questions. And I'm like, man, what? That question ain't that hard. Why? Why are we getting mad with that? Why do it? It's because the drill sergeant didn't know, and they got put on the spot. Because the Army, the military in general, doesn't teach most people how to shoot, and that kind of laid the groundwork for what I figured I was going to do for the rest of my life. I just didn't think it'd take me this long to do it all. But
Yeah. So, about when did you decide, like, hey, I'm going to start teaching people how to shoot? Was it as soon as you got out of the Army, or
no,
like did you
actually,
wait a while?
the very end of my 3 years as a drill sergeant, I was very successful in our rifle marksmanship programs that are conducted in basic training. The Army's model is that the kid gets three chances to qualify with a rifle. If they can't make it, they send them home. And I'm like, ooh, but that's not the individual, that's the instructor. Uh,
Yeah.
I was so successful helping those kids learn how to shoot that my last two cycles were only teaching drill sergeants how to teach people to shoot. I traveled all over the whole country in a program that I designed to help military rifle uh, marksmanship instructors do a better job at teaching, understanding why we need to do things the way it needs to be done. So it's a repeatable. Shooting is just simple physics. There's the human element added to it, but the human element is pretty common. The mistakes that we can make, and people just had never been exposed to that. Um, and that's the point where I came off the trail in 1997, and I started the business in 1998. The Army is big on, I'm sure the Marine Corps is as well. Whatever you're going to do, figure out what you're going to do afterwards. And when 28, 29 years old, you're not thinking about the rest of your life yet.
Yeah.
So I started the company in 1998, bent on going to do firearms instruction. I've had some retail um, adventures along the way, but that gave me a good 1998, and I didn't retire until 2005. So that gave me a good 7, 8 years of not depending on it as an income, but letting me learn. And I took advantage of the military. I left, when I left the drill sergeant side of it, I decided I was going to take every opportunity to learn how to teach people that I could possibly take. I worked at the range division at Fort Campbell for the 101st, responsible for all the live fire conduct of 160th Special Operations Aviation guys, all the 5th Group range stuff. Every live fire round that goes down range, I was in part responsible for. So there was the administrative side of how do we do this safely? How do we mitigate all of the risks so that the military can do the training that the military has to do? Way different than the civilian side, but still insight for what I knew I wanted to do down the road. I left there and went to Fordham University in the Bronx. When the Army said, "Hey, we're going to send you to New York City," I was like, "What? New York City? Are you kidding?" I said, "Dude, can you get grits for breakfast in New York City?" And the guy's like, "What?" And I said, can you get sweet tea in a restaurant? And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, see, you don't know what you're doing. But I really enjoyed my time in New York City. And I taught at Fordham University, right across from the zoo in the Bronx, uh, right down, right next to Little Italy, biggest small town in all the world, guaranteed. But I learned a tremendous amount about teaching at the university level. Things that you can say to a basic training private or a student that might be paying for your type of training aren't necessarily the same things that you can say to a college level student who's tens of thousands of dollars in debt trying to learn what you're trying to teach them. So a whole different approach. Uh, and I left that and came back to Fort Leonard Wood, where I was actually a drill sergeant, and I grew up not very far from here. And I took over a large training directorate, had like 130 or 140 civilians that worked for me, all instructors.
Wow.
Few, maybe 110, 120 service members that worked for me, and we taught. I oversaw the teaching of everything from all of what we call the Common Core skills, um,
Yeah.
in all kinds of stuff for um, lieutenants and captains as they go through their basic and advanced course, uh, for engineers, chemical, and military police officers, as well as a big chunk of the enlisted side of that, to include the program that teaches Army instructors how to instruct. So all of the ins and outs, the how's training designed, how's it developed, how do we test those individuals that we train, how do we test the material that we're actually going to teach from inside of that. So I tried to learn as much about teaching from every aspect that I could possibly think of.
And that makes sense too, because one of the things I've noticed about you is that even though you were a drill sergeant for so long, even though you can turn on the knife hand and, use the 4-letter words, you still have a way to, you already realize that, you can't talk to civilians that way. You
Right.
can't talk to armed citizens that way. And, you know, you're able to turn that off and still be able to reach them.
Part of what some of my peers laughed at me a lot in the Army, but I bought into the why early on. And I knew that if I could tell my subordinates, if I could tell the people that worked for me why we were doing something, and that built trust, that built confidence for them in what I was trying to accomplish. And they knew that when I couldn't tell them why, there was a reason. And if we were doing something that I didn't know the why, I was going to go find out. And that's half the videos that we produce now. Somebody thinks something, and I'm like, man, why do they think that? I don't know if I think that. Let me go try that. And sometimes I find out they're right. Sometimes I find out that, yeah, it's a different opinion.
Yeah. So what kind of students are you catering to right now? What kind of classes are you teaching? Are you looking at just gateway students, or are you also looking for advanced, LE? What are you looking at?
We don't, um, I shot my, and that's in part what I went to ask Tiffany about. I kind of shot myself in the foot uh, when I really started pushing this early in 98, 99 time frame. The internet had just been invented. There were AOL chat rooms and everybody was on dial up, whatever. And I started seeing um, some stuff, especially early 2000s. I started seeing instructors that were just, they were using it to shine a light on themselves. And I didn't want that light shined on me. I was really afraid that, and I don't, I think Tiff and Ack have really defined that gateway student. I teach a lot of concealed carry. Even in Missouri, we have constitutional carry. The year that passed, my class numbers more than doubled because there were people like, oh, I can carry a gun now. I don't know anything about it. But COVID year, we were doing 3 full classes, and I limit my class size to 10. I don't care where I go. I limit it because I want as much interaction as I can get. There's always at least two instructors out there, somebody I'm trying to help bring up in the game correctly, trying to help out. But I think I don't view the concealed carry necessarily as that gateway student. That's my chance. That's where I start people if they come to us. I really want to put my focus on that person that's now made the decision I'm going to carry. I'm going to, and I don't care, if it's a military, I don't care if it's police, I don't care. I've got a very unique background the first 10 years before I was a drill sergeant. A lot of unique opportunities and a lot of unique places that led me down that path of knowing that there's when we get on a gun and it's to save a life, it really doesn't matter what got us there. It doesn't matter the tactic that got us to that place or the reason that we're there, unless we've made mistakes getting there.
Yeah.
The actual operation of that firearm, whether it's a rifle, carbine, or a pistol, it doesn't know, oh, this is a defensive shooting. Oh, I got to do this. Or this is a competitive event. It doesn't know. The fundamental skills are the same. And the divide that I saw is what I've tried to bridge since we started this. I didn't want to see the divide between, the special operations guy or and I'm a concealed carry person and I want to get better at this. And I don't really divide things between basic and advanced. And advanced, I saw a guy out on the range today in a video I was cutting out practicing with a friend of mine, and he said, I took your concealed carry class like 8 years ago. I don't know if you remember me. And I'm like, I remember the face, but, and he said, you had us cut a playing card in half at 5 yards. And he said, I still remember that. And the guy he's with says, dude, he didn't let anybody forget that. If you take a playing card and you put a slot in the target and put the card there and back off 5 yards, and now you cut it in half, that's a huge deal. And some people, for that individual, they're like, wow, that was so cool. You could have called them names all day long, but now they're holding their 2 pieces of their card, and they're like, man, look at me, I'm a rock star. And some people would say that's an advanced skill. That's a basic application of skill. It might be an advanced application of a basic set of skills, but it's still point the gun where you want the bullet to go and make it fire without movement. So we really try to push. I would say the person we're most looking for is a serious student. And our deliberate responder program that we're trying to push hard in 2024 is a 3-day program. I don't care for the weekdays. I don't care for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But in part, that separates and I'm serious about this or I want, and not that I don't want the hobbyist, the guy that just has fun going to training for the sake of it being training. We know how, and there's social events. If you go to a range master class, if you've been to 2 classes, the second time you go, you're in class with somebody you've been in with before. Same if you go to a Seekland or Latham class. Same if you go to anybody's. If you go to Green Ops, there's going to be somebody that's been there before. You go to Modern Samurai, there's going to be people, and they're like, dude, where do I know you from? Now you're standing there going, wait a minute, I did this class last year, and I did this class. Oh yeah, that's the one. I want that person that's serious about getting better, that wants to hold themselves accountable.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think that's most of the people that are listening to this podcast right now. So I think it's something that we can very much relate to. So, yeah. So speaking of this, right? So I think earlier in like late 2023, there was the Rangemaster Professional Trainers Symposium, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what, like it seemed like there were some super bright minds in that room.
Oh,
Would you mind talking about some of your takeaways away from that?
uh, I think I'm probably still on cloud nine, having been selected as one of the people. I don't even want to know how many people were above me that said, "Man, I can't make it for my name to come in line." But I think the guys that got to speak at that, as well as the folks that were just there to be a part of it, I think all of us sat around like, "Holy cow! What did I do to get to be here?" It was such an honor to be there. Um, I have a horrible affliction. I've smoked my whole adult life, and most of the time when you go to anything, the smokers are outside by themselves. And there was another very well-known instructor who had a speaking part in that. And the first break we took, I'm outside smoking with him, and I'm like, "Man, I never thought I'd be in a class with this guy, much less outside talking to him while I'm smoking." Not that there's anything good about smoking. I'm not saying that at all. Um, but
Literally smoking and joking.
oh, no kidding. Um, and to uh, just to be Lynn and Tom Given are such great people. Anyway, I mean they're just. I'm so honored to call them friends, and then to get invited uh, to that, to see that family-like adventure, and there's three generations of firearms instructors represented in that 30-person, 34 people, I think, total, uh, there from, I think, I can't remember, there was a little bit of an argument between Tim Kelly and Lane Thayer, which one was the youngest one. And I looked around the room and I said, "Yeah, I'm not the oldest and I'm not the youngest. So I'm just going to sit here and be quiet for a minute." Uh, but it ended with, "Hey, was there value in what we did, and should we do this again?" And everybody, "Oh, yes, absolutely." There's lots of talk. How do we, an estimate, and if I get the numbers wrong, I hope the guys will say something if they watch. We're like 10,000 something firearms instructors right now, people that can legitimately call themselves an instructor. I couldn't even calculate how much, how many hours I have sat in the seat to learn to be an instructor. Most of the people that we see now calling themselves that, it's a 2-day class. And it, I know that in Missouri, the NRA Instructor Program is what is written in the state law, is one of the things you have to have in order to teach concealed carry. USCCA is approved, but it's not by name written into the law. And in those guys, there's no oversight. There's no holding them accountable. They're not required to do an apprenticeship like program. And there were talk, how could we do more? What could we do to, you know, I don't think any of us really want to discourage them from being instructors. We want to lift them up to get them to be the best instructor that they can be. Uh, but sometimes I think they you know, one of the topics we talk about is they don't realize that there's a whole world of people, it's a tiny world, there's a whole world of people above them that have way more knowledge that needs to be shared. And the people that it needs to be shared with are the ones that need it the most. Most guys think, and I had several sidebar conversations, most of the people that were there are not teaching that basic concealed carry program. They're beyond that. Uh, Competitive, high-end classes, those kinds of things. They're teaching instructor classes, and I really believe that I don't want to see oversight. I don't want to see a governing body step in. I don't want to see any of that. But the the single mom that realizes that we live in a crappy world and she might need to have to protect herself and her kids, she needs the absolute best instructor that she could possibly find. She doesn't need the guy that just learned how to do that thing. She needs the guy that has forgotten more about running a gun and the tactics of running that gun in a defensive setting, then they have time to teach them. And you know, I think Carl Lynn has and we brought those points out, an excellent study where it says 1% of the gun owning population is out doing anything beyond a basic level of training. And for most of those, lots of those, it's just a concealed carry requirement. It's a certification course that, you know, who knows if it's squared away. It probably meets the state requirement, but the state requirement isn't very difficult in most states. And but they leave out of there thinking, man, I know everything there is to know, and I'm happy with what I. Yeah, no, you don't. No, you don't. We barely touched the iceberg, and I really think that, you know, our deliberate responder program, if I could get them in there and introduce them to that concept, the highest standard possible, and the means to get to that high standard for themselves. And then if they never take another class, I've done everything that I can do, you know, to help them along the way. You know, I go to, you know, concealed carry classes around here all the time. Just you know, like, and I watch that. I don't think they're lying on purpose. Sometimes I think, man, like, do you not know how to read? Can you not look at the state law and see what that actually says? I don't think they're trying to be misleading, but the student that is misled nonetheless. So that was probably one of the biggest takeaways. I've always believed in a very high standard. We should hold ourselves to the highest standard possible. The Army's non-commissioned officer creed. Uh, when I got promoted to an NCO very early in my career, I tried everything I could to live that creed, the highest standard possible, and holding myself accountable. And I think that's what I've always tried to do with the shooting side of the business, the teaching side of it. Uh, and at the symposium, I was surrounded by people that also want to see that super crazy high standard, because we can. I mean, that's the performance side of what we're doing. That, you know, I picked the word advanced very specifically when I named the company, but more because it was the letter A, so it would show up early in a search if there were alphabetical involved. But it was never advanced like beyond basic. It was advanced like moving the clock forward in the springtime for those places that change the clock every year. It was moved beyond this thing. And the performance side of it was long before we thought of performance shooting as what we're currently seeing. I was like, I don't remember if I made Grandmaster in 99 or 2000, somewhere in that ballpark. I know I lived in New York City when I did. And I thought, man, if every special operations guy, if every cop, uh, if everybody that carries a gun could shoot at a grandmaster level, oh, well, this would be a great world. Holy cow, the bad guys would be afraid to be bad guys. There's probably bad guys that might try to shoot at that level. And it's probably not realistic to hold, to have that hope, but to raise the standard as high as we can, I think, is realistic. So that's probably, and they're going to do another symposium. Tom said, I sent him an email, thanked him. I'm sure everybody did. So that was awesome. Man, my 2 cents, don't ever let this stop. When you decide you don't want to do it anymore, figure out who's going to take your place. But it ought to be every year. It ought to be reoccurring. And we have to include other people so it doesn't look like that cliquish like thing that we so often can see. Tom sent me an email back and said, hey, you probably do have to invite different people. Make sure we're including as many people as we can, grow this as best we can. I got cool. Sad that I didn't get invited for the second one. And then 2 days later, I got an email invite for next year's. I'm like, yes. Hey, going to Nashville again. Oh, I'll put it on the calendar. And I know a lot more of the people that are going next year. So I'm super excited about that event. Just one more chance to raise that standard just a little bit.
Absolutely. So I keep thinking back to all the decades of experience that you have. And I'm also thinking back to the young instructors that were in that USCCA class that where we met. And also I'm seeing the instructors that are online that are just now starting off their journey, and they simply just don't know what they don't know. Um, like, what kind of advice can you offer to them as far as how to perfect their craft?
Go to classes. Go take classes. I look. I don't even remember how many classes I took last year. I got invited. I think I AI'd two of Tom's classes. One was a 5-day class. And when I say got invited, I'm like, hey, if you need any help, let me know. And he's like, yeah, you're sure. Okay, I'll be there. Uh, but any chance to get out and AI, it's a pretty tough place to go. I mean, it's Steve, my partner, who I tried to get him to be here, but he's more camera shy than I am. I've been married to the same woman for 35 years. She said I have a face made for radio, and I was like, no, this is a podcast. There's video, and she goes, oh, you're screwed. That's love right there. But my style of teaching um, goes back. I tell that story to people that are interested in why I teach the way I taught or teach. I was raised in a Nazarene church. My brother's a Nazarene minister in Billings, Montana. Uh, my church is a very old church. When one of the guys that would routinely get up and sing, if he wasn't 142 years old, he was close to it. Couldn't carry a tune in a bucket, but he'd get up and sing every chance they got. I don't remember ever seeing a choir in our choir loft at church, ever. And it was not a mega church by any means. If we had 130, 140 people in a service on Sunday morning, that was a big deal. And I grew up an hour and a half from Kansas City, something like that. And one day, one of the church choirs from Kansas City, from another Nazarene church, came down and sang. And that choir loft was swaying back and forth, and holy smoke, I never, ever heard music like that in a church. And the choir director's up there, and he's dancing. And you're not supposed to dance in the Nazarene religion when I was of church age. That's kind of he's dancing and they're swinging and singing, and he'd call out some lady from the middle of the choir loft, and they'd empty half the loft. She'd come down to the front, she'd sing her solo, and then she'd fill back in on the end. And then he'd pick somebody else, and they'd empty out the other half of the choir loft, and she'd waddle around, come out to the front, and sing. And I'm like, and I was probably 15, 16 years old. And I'm like, why wouldn't I put the solo artists out on the end where they don't have to empty the choir loft for them to get there? And I asked the choir director in the little dinner we had for him afterwards. He said, I don't know who they're going to be. I don't know who the solo artists are going to be. I expect them to know the song and to be able to perform when I call on them. And I was like, holy smoke. And that's how I try to bring the guys that have expressed interest in teaching with or for me. That's what I tell them. You hang out as much as you want. Hang out, hang targets, do whatever. I'll do everything I can. I said, at some point, I'm gonna call on you, and I'm gonna expect you to get out front. And if you can't sing the song, yeah, I said, I'm not gonna put you on the spot. I'm not gonna do it until I'm pretty sure that you're ready. But know that it's coming, and you better be able to stand up and perform, because that's what I think this job requires. I'm huge in demonstrations. I taught, like most small businesses, when this was my retirement plan, 3 days out of the Army, I'm like, here we go. I retired on like a Friday. Monday, the phone didn't ring. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. It's Monday. It's my first day retired. Tuesday, when the phone didn't ring, I was like, that's okay. You've only been retired for two. Ooh, what if the phone doesn't ring Wednesday? What are you going to do? So I went right back to work for the government, teaching marksmanship. Jumped on a contract to Afghanistan, teaching. It was originally a Navy Special Operations contract for a training requirement. They referred to us. They ended up hiring a couple more than they thought, but they referred to us as a $6 million man for what they wanted. The government came back and said, dude, if you're going to get that, it's going to cost this amount of money. They didn't pay me nowhere near that. But I had an excellent training opportunity for close to 18 months in Afghanistan, and then came back and taught Department of Defense SWAT teams at Fort Wood for another 8 years before then I thought the business was ready to stand on its own 2 feet, and really do something. So the guys that think they're gonna quit whatever it is they're doing that's making money and they're gonna go teach, oh, that's a tough road to hoe. There's literally probably for most of them 15 or 20 years worth of experiences that they have to be able to tie together before I think they're probably really ready to teach. Some of them can do it. Tim Hare is a great example of somebody. Uh,
Oh yeah.
he ties a lot of his previous life into what he's doing. Very passionate about it. I don't remember when Tim started shooting USPSA stuff, but it's a bunch of time, figuring out how to get there, figuring out what works. Red Dots have showed us so much. The guys that we, one of the huge divides with the instructional side now are dots versus irons.
Yeah.
All either one of them does is tell you where the gun's pointed. That's all it does. It doesn't point the gun for you. It's not like, oh, and it makes a lightsaber kind of sound. It just tells you where it's pointed. And all of it, I was a huge front sight focus guy, huge front sight focus. I have shooting glasses that have reading lenses. And then for when I started getting a little bit older, and I'm like, oh my God, my front sight's a little bit blurry. Holy cow. We could have been target focused 150 years ago. We just didn't know it. Sometimes you need a little bit more precision inside of it, but we could have been target focused a long time ago. And dots didn't show a lot of us that for a very long, or without the dot, we didn't see that for a very long time. Guys weren't paying close enough attention to know what they were really. Rob Latham in an interview said, I've been doing that for forever, and I was embarrassed to tell anybody for fear they'd laugh at me. Dude, you're Rob Latham. Who's going to laugh? First off, you're huge. You can shoot really good. You can keep them from laughing at you. But Seeklander and Michael and I are good friends. We were B-class shooters back in the day, 97, 98, 99 time frame. B-class shooters. Both of us in Tennessee. Emmanuel Bragg, B-class shooter with me, trying to figure things out. I think Robbie Latham was born a grandmaster. I'm not sure, but when I shot my first IPSC match in 1986 in Berlin, the guys I was working with are like, "Hey, this is what we do on weekends because that's another training opportunity for us." So, and Berlin didn't have a whole. That was a pretty cool city to live in the mid '80s, but. So I went to the range and I started in that, and there wasn't even master class there. It ended at A.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you either shot a 1911 or you shot a revolver. Once in a blue moon you'd see somebody on like a Browning high power, but that was rare. And Para-Ordnance hadn't even made their high cap frame yet when I first started into that, and nobody had really thought about putting a dot on a competition gun back then. Different world. And those are the experiences that the new generation of instructors coming up, that's what they miss. one of the guys that got me so interested in teaching, probably more than he gets credit for, is one of my high school history teachers. He was just he's just such a good history teacher that I just wanted to sit there and just listen. Tom Given's is his historical aspect to what he teaches in all the range master classes. To me, is so critical. There's nothing new. But all this has been done for however many years we've been doing it. There was somebody, I don't know if David just learned how to throw that rock with that slingshot or if somebody taught him, but if somebody taught him, he was talking about the same fundamental set of skills. Hey, put your feet like this, keep your upper body straight, put your focus on where that's supposed to be. And maybe he was self-taught, maybe he had a little bit of help, but the instructional side of it has historical importance that lots of the new guys are just missing. You go to a 3-day class and grab it and run. And I think it's interesting to me. I would like to know what percentage of people that are going to. I don't. Last 2 years, maybe 3 years, I haven't been to a class. I think Dave Spalding was the last class that I went to that wasn't an instructor level classes. I see far more instructor level classes now because I think everybody that was going to take the not instructor level has already taken it. And guys are like, ooh, what do I got to do now? Ooh, I'll teach an instructor class and go. And you see so many people at like range master classes that they stand up in their introductions and have no intent to start a business or to teach people other than friends and family. And I'm like, oh, and if some of these little guys, and I don't mean little because they're small, I mean brand new, starting out in this, if they saw that, have you met a good friend of mine, Phil Fogel? Have you been in touch with him yet? Oh,
like I forget what class it was, but yeah, he was in a class.
Soon to be 84 years old. And I'm like, the first class I was in with him, I think was that Dave Spalding class. And he was just getting started. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay away from that guy. Yeah, as long as you keep him pointed that direction, cool. But he kept at it. At 80 something years old, the next class we were in together was a range master, I think maybe the 5-day course. And he was on one extreme end of the firing line, had to move as the peer coach to the other end. And at 80 whatever, he's running down the firing line to get to his end. He's not running fast. He's running faster than I wanted to run. But I'm like, man, if these guys could see the level of dedication to learning, then they wouldn't wonder why we want that for them.
Yeah.
That shirt right there on that guy, that I don't know where Phil saw it, but I saw Phil wearing one, and I'm like, ooh, I gotta get one of them. And Steve, he finds everything. The first one of those was a medium. I'm like, I ain't been in a medium in an awfully long time. That ain't gonna fit me. So it's on the dummy. But
first time I saw that shirt was John Hearn was wearing one.
Oh, he's retired now. He's retired.
John Hearn?
Yeah, like last Friday was his.
That's right.
Official retired day.
Yeah. You know what? He posted a video on Facebook with his last call.
Yeah.
And man, tell you what, like it that never gets old.
No.
That never gets old listening to those,
Yeah. Well, and I think, I never. How long did you stay in the Marine Corps?
Only 9 years.
And I think that probably most branches are the same. Fort Leonard Wood is the largest contingent of Marines outside of a Marine base anywhere in the world. I don't know if you knew that. There's a ton of Marines here.
Wow.
Very well kept secret. On the team of instructors I taught with when I taught the Department of Defense SWAT teams, each of the teams were composed of 3 civilians, a soldier, an airman, and a Marine. And the Marines they sent here to help teach that were just super, super cool Marines. Most of them on their way to MARSOC. That was just a stepping stone. Um, we, I wear hearing aids because I spent half of my life doing explosive breaching as a means to get teams into a building to help people. And Army's hearing protection wasn't always the same. But I think lots of times, uh, somewhere about the 8, 9, 10 year window, service members start thinking, man, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? Is this really what I want? I kind of thought about a career in law enforcement, uh, and actually had a pretty good opportunity to go into CID. CID was very receptive at the time, and the infantry branch was like, we're not going to let you go. We've spent way too much time and money in your training, and it's no. And I'm like, well, you just get out of the Army. And they're like, it's cheaper for us if you get out than it is if we let you go do something else. Like, what? But
Huh.
I stayed for another 11 years after that. But I think that whether it's a military retirement, whether it's a law enforcement retirement, John and I were talking, I think at the symposium, uh, and he was considering it. Yeah, and when was the symposium? October, I think. He was,
I think so. Yeah.
I think it was middle or end of October. I don't think it was November yet.
It wasn't, I don't think it was Thanksgiving and Christmas yet.
Uh-uh.
So,
But he hadn't made up his mind. He didn't know a date, even at the symposium. And I laughed and said, I said, you'll know the day. Once you hit that window, you'll know the day. The day when it's time for you to do something different will stare you in the face, and you'll be like, whoa, okay, today's the day. So I'm glad for that. He's such I can't imagine the level of research that he has put. I can't even. Oh, super super smart, nice guy, and I don't. I hope he doesn't watch. I don't think he even realizes how smart he is. When I started working on this light kind of concept for a visual start versus an audible start, just a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, right after the symposium, as a matter of fact, he comes back in a response. Oh, you need this. You need this kind of resistor. And da, 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 da. I'm like, whoa, dude, no, stop. If we're at Radio Shack, you can point to the part that I need, but I don't even have a Radio Shack here. I mean, he's such a smart dude. So I think the fact that he's as involved as a range master instructor, uh, staff guy, uh, with the knowledge base that he has and the ability to do the research, I think the people that will seek him out for training are way more luckier now than they were last year when he was still a full-time law enforcement guy. So I'm
yeah,
excited to see how that goes.
me too. Mainly because he's like right down the road from me. Tupelo's just an hour and a half. So,
Really,
yeah, I can't wait. So,
yeah, I would text him right now and say, hey, what you doing this weekend? He's probably trying to figure out what to do now that he's retired, but it won't take long.
I do need to text him. I do. Because, like, I want to get him on the show. I want to get him on here.
You need a
Yeah.
translator. Not necessarily you, but you need like a little translation of things that comes across the bottom because he's going to use big words and he rattles them off fast. I'm like, holy smoke. I can't even read my notes when I sit in one of his classes because I'm trying to write so fast that, yeah, it's not happening.
Yeah. You catch one nugget, and while you're writing it down, he's got 3 or 4 others.
Right.
It's wow.
Well, on my
So,
list of things is both of the protective pistol craft 5-day classes next year. I want to try to AI both of them. One's a little bit farther drive than I really want to make, but if Hearn, there's so much. Um, I don't. I don't think John had a. I don't think Hearn had a speaking part at the symposium. He spoke up quite a little bit. I mean, everybody was sharing what they had. Uh, but just like John Holstrom, I've listened to Holstrom talk about. visual versus audible stimulus for a start. I think the Symposium was the third time that I've heard versions of what he says based on the same neural systems system. And I kind of dismissed it the first two times, but at the Symposium, I'm like, hey, I need to look at this just a tiny bit. I need to think about this. And some of what's available, like that from Dustin Solomon, that company he's involved with, that's a pretty expensive system. And when you're on a military retirement, when you're banking on putting people in concealed carry classes, and I have a full-time classroom now. The shop that I used for 8 years when I left government service, that burned down in 2022. So,
Oh wow.
yeah, it just got 30,000 rounds of 9mm delivered when the fire started. I'm like, oh, please don't let it go around the corner. Please don't let it start out. Well, I got lucky. But
Oh
it
my
took me 5
gosh.
minutes to find my classroom. And now it's a matter of putting people in seats to keep the lights on. That's a challenging part. I've talked to John Holshin a little bit, talked to Hearn a tiny bit. Let me see what I can play with for pennies on the dollar to try a visual start versus the audible start and see if I see a difference. And Holshin has so much um, research in that system, that 2 or 3, 4 years worth of building into that. Um, and I saw enough interest with I bought a little LED light in the automotive section at Walmart and a thing of speaker wire. I
Yeah.
took apart the old Are You Ready yellow timers, and I
Yeah.
found out that the noisemaker and the shot sensor are one and the same. And I don't know anything about amps or volts, but if you're holding down on the shot sensor when you push the button, it's a pretty electrifying experience. Uh, but I took apart a packed Pro Timer, and I just connected the lights to where the speaker connection was, and I could see a visual start. And I'm like, oh, man, there's something to this. There's value in looking at this from a student perspective. And it, no matter what we do, whether it's lasers or lights, any amount of technology that we add to a training package, it has limitations. Some lighting conditions and smoky conditions. I worked quite a little bit in the virtual reality field for the government for a little bit, not only in firearms training, and it's pretty advanced, but it still has limitations, and it will always
Yeah.
have limitations. Turning targets are pretty cool. They're expensive, but they're pretty cool. And how much value does that add? If it costs me $25,000 to put turning targets on my range, the only thing that different that a student gets is that target turning to face them and turning away. Fancier than start and stop, beat and another beat maybe. So I've fiddled around a little bit. I've got a pretty decent. I ended up having to bring an electrical engineer in because I just don't know nothing about electricity to
Yeah.
figure out what relays and switches look like. Uh, but with just automotive section lights from Walmart, and a couple of 9-volt batteries and 25-year-old timer. Now I can stand out on range and have a visual start, a visual stop, a change in behavior for students. And without the work that Hearn and Holston are doing, and that I probably would have never. It took 3 times me hearing Holston's presentation before I even paid attention. I mean, I took notes every time. I listened to him, but the third time at a class, and that's in part what these new guys are missing. You know, we
Yeah.
know when we go to class, we know whatever amount of money it costs us, that we perceive the value in spending that amount of money. Um, and most of us realize after maybe it takes 1 or 2, but after 1 or 2 classes, if you walk away with one thing from that class, one thing, you're a winner out of that deal. I went. Ron Avery was. I shot with Ron forever, uh, from way back in the day. I don't even remember. when a lot of people don't know, I've done a lot of block work. We were doing double undercuts on polymer frame pistols in the late 90s, early 2000s. I used to paint STI grips and do the stippling on STI grips before they were staccato. Good friends with the people that owned the husband and wife team that owned STI. Then when I first did 2 undercuts under the trigger guard, people looked like, what are you doing with that? I'm like, dude, wait till you try it. And we were the only company that ever did a factory approved grip modification. There's guys that are cutting on blocks now that have no idea who started those cuts. I'm not trying to be famous from that. I'm trying to make a comfortable gun that people can shoot better. And
Yeah.
Ron Avery come by. I've known him for a while. And he's like, hey, you really want to make it comfortable? Cut it right here and right here. I'm like, okay. And I got to do Ron the year before he passed away from cancer. Cancer was just a horrible thing. I got to do his 5-day combat master class. I think he called it. It was great class. The by invitation only class. If he didn't know if he'd not shot with you, he had a list of drills that this is where you need to set your camera up. This is what I want to see in the drill. Send me that and I'll make a decision. One of the only classes I've ever been to where there was like the audition at the beginning of the class, and he walked up to the guy and said, dude, you ain't ready. I don't know what their arrangement was after the fact, but he was like, you ain't ready. This is not going to help you. You need to go do something else this week. I'm like, oh, holy cow.
Yikes.
It's such a smart guy, gone way too soon, and did a lot of work with Force Science Institute trying to figure out how to help cops do better in training. And those are the pieces. I think I don't even remember what year that was. I could walk down my wall of fame and find a certificate probably, but he said something about manipulating the trigger and kind of in one ear, out the other ear. All my class notes are in the same binder from all the classes I've ever been to, and sometimes I have to fumble back through them and figure out stuff. I went to, I think, Modern Samurai, Red Dot instructor class, and they said something different about the trigger. And I was like, oh, hold on. Let me go back over here to something I heard 7 years ago and think, now it starts to come full circle. And that's the piece that I think it's our job to try to demonstrate to the guy that wants to be an instructor. That's the part they have to do. You might tell them you're a Marine Special Operations guy, that you were a MARSOC operator. You might tell them that and get people in class. You're only going to fool people for so long. The effort that you make up front in being the best instructor that you can be and I don't really have to be a grandmaster level competitor. I don't have to be a master class IDPA competitor. It sure makes it easier to stand back and show somebody if you possess those type of skills. I would expect the instructors should be as good or better than most of their students, but the thing that I would expect is, more than anything, is the ability to perform on demand. And if you throw a miss, you throw a miss. Don't BS them. Yeah, everybody misses. What part did you do wrong? Now, can you make it up? Can you put the wheels back on and control it and do it again? And I think that's probably what's missing for so many of them. Is they didn't have anybody to set the example. Mentor gets thrown around quite a little bit, and there's a lot of probably hard feelings is fair. There's a lot of people that tried to help other people. They tried to mentor them, and they got screwed. Hey, let's do these things together, and the mentoree just took everything and ran. Took all the credit for it and ran away. And I can show you several examples, and nobody wants that. That's not, that's not fair. I like it, but something to help that new group of people come up where it doesn't dumb down all that we've worked for. This is we're one of the topics of the symposium was, we're now into the fourth generation of firearms instructors. There was this original group, and then there was the next one, and there were three generations of them represented in the symposium. In the picture, I had never met John Farnham before. I knew who John Farnham was. I got to shoot on the line with him. I'm not sure how old John Farnham is, but if you look up old in the dictionary, he's one of the examples. But Tom pulled me right next to Lynn for the picture, and John Farnham's got his hand on my shoulder. I'm glad that picture didn't happen at the beginning, because my head would have been so swelled up I wouldn't have been able to listen to some of what they were putting out. But part of the current new group of guys, they don't have a clue who those people are and what they brought to professional firearms instruction across the board. And TACOM getting ready to come up. Tiffany's putting out hey, here's an instructor for this, here's an instructor for that. I'm almost looking at that list like, okay, well, I'm not sure how old that guy is. I'm not sure how old this one is. But we can't let those ideas, those great minds, go away without experiencing it. And you can read it in a book, you can watch it in a video, but to be in a place, a class, or whatever the format, to be able to talk to those people is so critical, such a big deal, I think.
Huge deal. So, we've been going for about an hour. It just flew by. So, Jim, before I let you go, I do want to say thank you so much for the time and your insight, and it's just absolutely amazing. For our listeners and our viewers, if they want to reach out to you, where can they find you? How can they get a hold of you?
The website's pretty easy, advancedperformanceshooting.com. You mean to give me my cell phone number on here? I don't care.
Oh, the website's fine. If you are you on? I know you're on Facebook.
Yep.
Are you on Instagram and YouTube?
I don't do. Yes, I am. I don't do as much on there. I really have fun putting little short videos up with whatever background music I have that I might not have permission to use some of them, but I'm not trying to make any money off of them. So I try to keep them off of Facebook or off of YouTube. But it's pretty easy to reach me from Facebook. Shoot me an email. Find me on the Deliberate Training Group 2.0 is working pretty hard. I'm trying to help a bunch with some of that, which I think is
God bless you.
And that's our big push for the year is our deliberate responder package. I'm not a first responder, an immediate responder. That's there's no thought. An initial responder. Ours is that deliberate responder concept. I am here where I'm supposed to be, emotionally and physically prepared for those things through training to be able to respond if that's what I have to do. And I don't care what their motivation for learning that is. We're going to do it in a 2-day program as well as a 3-day program. 3-day would be my preference. They're priced identical. I didn't even raise the price for the 3-day program because I'm asking them for one more day of their time. So
it's a whole additional day. That's basically no additional charge.
No additional. The only $625 is where we're putting that level of training, whether it's the 16-hour block or the 24-hour block. If there's additional range fees that we can't usually control, then there may be a little bit more for the 3rd day. But I think the classroom work is what's missing from the 2-day. I think it's critical. It's split up in the 3-day program where we're in class, on the range all day, and then on the range and then in the classroom. But I can save people a whole day to get them back to work. I'd rather be on the range than at work any day, but I can get them back to work early and still do the teaching, the fundamental skill sets of teaching that they want. And one of the things we do in most of our classes, I ask, hey, from concealment at 3 yards, 4 yards, whatever, what do you want to see the shot on this IPSC target at? And somebody will usually say, oh, under a second. Boom. Man, whoa, that was a 0.8, 0.9 something. I'm like, yeah, but that's not the hit that I wanted. But hold on, let me see, can I whack? And I'll incrementally slow it down a tenth of a second at a time to get the exact hit that I want and still finish in like 1.5. So the delivery responder package is a fundamental set of skills under control, developed under control, that I think is not missing. We're not doing anything better than a lot of our peers. We're taking a slightly different approach, but the fundamentals of marksmanship are the same. I probably don't talk about trigger like some guys might talk about trigger. I really don't care what you do. I want you to point the gun at the target and make it fire without moving where it's pointed. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what you call it, but hopefully we'll see folks. We're going to try to do them on the road, so we're looking for hosts. I don't have a huge hosting requirement, so try to do a few on the road. I'm old enough that I don't know how Tom drives all the places that he drives. My butt can handle that no more. I'm like, oh, dude, I can't sit in the car that long. Holy smoke. Don't really want to fly, but I'm not closing the door. I have tried to keep it local since 1998. I don't know how many years that is. But I want to get out there and help more people. I want to make money doing it. You can't, you gotta feed my family somehow. But,
Do this for free.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we hope for, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I'm afraid I did way more talking than you did talking.
I'm here for it. Like, that's really, like, the show is never really about me. It's, about like getting some highly skilled instructors and shooters and, introducing those folks to people that may not know who they are. So,
well, man, I'm honored you'd put me in that category.
I'm honored that you'd even say yes. I deserve
Oh.
it. I think it's amazing.
Well, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, let's do this again. Let's do this again.
All right,
And so before we let you go, I do want to say to our listeners and to our viewers, I just want to say thank you so much for the time that you spent with us. Your time's very valuable. You could have spent it with your family, or you could have spent it earning some extra cash, but you spent it here with us, and I just want to let you know how much we appreciate it. So, thank you for watching, Jim. Thanks a bunch for coming on, man. I really do appreciate it. All righty, and folks, thanks a bunch for listening. Welcome to Memphis.